Hi, everyone. It's Lindsey Baker with the Action Hour. And today my guest is Kimberly Carroll. She is a change maker coach, and she is here to talk to us about activism burnout and change maker burnout. She devotes her career to helping change makers with inner shifts, high performance habits, and strategies that make you unstoppable. So, welcome, Kimberly. Thanks for being here today. How are you?
Oh, thank you. I'm great, Lindsay. I think there's a bit of a delay, so if I stomp on you or there's a bit of a, a wait, you'll know why. I'm great, and you're going to see a tip of the ear. So I thought I better introduce this little one. She's assisting me today. This is
Oh,
Karma, my little rescue cat. It never fails, Lindsay. As soon as I go on live, she's on my lap.
my cat's the same that way when I play the piano.
Yeah. Aww.
Yeah, but he nicked one of my keys. So cute, jumping down on the keyboard.
Oh my God, that's adorable.
No, it's not. He nicked the ivory key, or not ivory, God forbid,
Yes.
plastic.
Well, first of all, I'm seeing a beautiful sunbeam coming down on you. Meanwhile,
Oh,
it's completely dark here.
mm-mm.
I want to be where you are.
Yeah, you have light behind you. It looks quite nice. No, that's
Yeah,
because we have very high ceilings in my studio, and the light comes in. I couldn't block it if I want.
right.
Sometimes I want to. So let's get started. I'm sure the audience really wants to hear a lot about your background. So you've been an activist for a long time, and can you tell us about how that um, got you into the career you are today? Tell us a little bit about your background and how you segued into the current career you have today.
Yeah, it's a bit of a long and winding road. I actually was a television host for a lot of my adult life, for about 15 years, a television host and producer. So actually, when you introduced me as a host, I'm like, oh well. And so while I was busy sort of selling my soul to television, I was working sort of in the background to try and earn it back. And so I've always been on a journey of wellness, of exploration, and when I became an activist, probably a good 15 years ago, I went veg almost 25 years ago, but
Nice.
it took me a while to become an activist. Like back when I went veg, there was no internet. I was, kind of alone in it. Um,
Yeah.
and then suddenly, finding myself in Toronto, and there are people like me that care about animals. And I was able to become an activist. And so for me, Lindsay, as a lot of people are when they first start in activism, I just sort of dove in wherever I could. I was at every protest and every demo, and you
Let's
know,
look at a couple of the different ones here. Tell us what
well,
they are.
so I'll tell you a little bit about where I am now, and then I'll backtrack. So that was the team from Animal Justice. So today I find myself not only as a coach for change makers, but as an activist, as an animal activist. I'm a director with Animal Justice. We lead the legal charge for animals in Canada, and a wonderful team. I love working with Animal Justice, and I also help. I'm also director with the Toronto Vegetarian Food Bank.
Nice.
So we supply vegan groceries to those that live under the poverty line. So eco-conscious, cruelty-free, and healthy groceries to those most in need. So yeah, so that is where the journey has brought me now. But back when I was beginning to do activism, I was just kind of running around with my hair on fire. I was just trying to be everywhere and do everything. It's almost like I was making up for lost time. And so my journey was one where I really had to figure out how to become more effective in what I was doing and how to become more sustainable, like how to have longevity. Because at the rate I started, like a lot of newbies, I was ready to burn out, within a year, basically.
Mhm.
I was doing too much. I couldn't let a conversation go. I couldn't let a project go. I couldn't let anything go. And this was even before like social media was big. So now it's even more of a temptation to be on 24/7 with animal activism. So I remember, Lindsay, the turning point for me. Um, I I went to a live auction where a lot of the farmed animals are put up for auction. It's certainly not one of the most brutal parts of the industrial farming system, but it's still brutal. And I went with a dear friend of mine, Twyla Francois, who has been an investigator and head of investigations here in a number of capacities in Canada. And I remember that day well because we kind of snuck into the auction house, and we were really just kind of trying to get a sense of, and again, this was probably 13 years ago, trying to get a sense of how the animals were being treated, trying to see if there were violations, and basically just there to bring some comfort. And so I think you might have a picture of me giving water to a pig, and that was that day at the livestock auction. And in fact, Twyla, she's actually quite a famous animal rights artist. She created a painting from that picture. And what happened that day was, I mean, not only did we just see, well, the pig that you'll see me giving water to was just so in pain, so suffering, and we found out that this was only one stop. They were going to take her to another province yet.
Right.
She bought. They were going to take her to another province. And it was very clear she needed to be euthanized. There was also just a whole heap of baby goats that were in a corral that were separated from their mother for the first time, and they were just beside themselves. They were terrified and squealing and huddled together. And there was one little goat that was in a separate containment unit, and we realized this goat had one eye out missing, so was half blind goat. And Twyla looked at me and she said, you need a win today. And she says, let's get this goat. And so I was like, can we? I mean, that's not really what you're supposed to do when you go into investigations like that. But she knew that I was, I was struggling. And we did what we could, but as soon as the farmers got a, sense that we were not farmers and that we actually cared about the animals, that one-eyed goat disappeared very quickly. And
Mm.
I wish that there was a happier ending to that story, but we left feeling very, dejected. But it's like I, for the first time, sort of really faced it. I mean, I had had the ideas of it, but I faced it, and I was kind of like, that's it. I cannot do anything else in my life. I have to just get in the trenches, and I've got to give up everything else, and I'm just going to war, and I came back with that sense of sadness of having to let go of the other meaningful things in my life. And luckily, a very good friend of mine who had been an animal activist for quite a long time, he sat me down, and this is what changed the trajectory of my course. And he said, Kimberly, how you influence people and inspire people is because of your unique energy and your unique talents. If you just sacrifice everything that makes you you, you will no longer have the power to inspire, the power to really change. You need to figure out how you can best bring yourself and what your talents are to this mission, and you've got to do everything you can to cultivate that. And
So how does someone learn what what they have to bring? Like, how can they, like, if they're not particularly in a certain field, like a graphic designer or social media expert, like, what if there's just an average person and they want to help, but they feel helpless? How would they begin to figure out what to do, or what's your advice?
Well, I'd have to argue that there's not really too many average people, especially those that are attracted to doing this work.
Yeah, just a figure of speech.
Yeah, no, but just just because I'm sure some people are thinking exactly that, Lindsay. So I just sort of I want to give people a little tap and go, is that, or if you're thinking of yourself as average, maybe think again.
Right.
It really is about finding what your biggest potential contribution is, and sinking your energies in there. So it could be subtle things like, just if you're really good at numbers, oh my god, there are so many animal organizations out there that could use your help. If you are somebody who's creative and has a little bit of sort of digital creative skills, there are so many projects that could use your help. If you are somebody who just is really good with people, don't stand behind a sign, get out there and leaflet. Use your
But
gift of gab
but
to get out
also, I think
and
sometimes people
connect.
that are not good with that feel intimidated. That you don't have to do that. If you're not good at going out and speaking to people, that's not the only way to be an activist, right? There's so
Oh,
many different ways, is what you're saying.
yeah, you don't have to be an extrovert. In fact, like, I think I would love to see more people dedicate themselves strictly to writing letters to the editor. If we had like a handful of people that were dedicated, every week to producing an excellent letter to the editor, for example, what a difference that makes. How powerful is that to get, the animals sort of perspective and championing for the animals into media publications. And people don't, so my problem is I see a lot of activists who are good writers, but where they're spending their time? They're arguing with trolls on Facebook or
Right.
you know and so I'm of the mind that, yes, if you are somebody who does have some sort of social media skills, or if you have some graphic design skills and you are busy, like all you're doing is showing up to demos, then I'm going to take that sign and I'm going to whack you on the head with it, because we need to take your unique talents and we need to find places, because there's so few of us doing such big work, and we really need to everybody needs to find a place, a little corner where they can contribute. Maybe you're just a really good mediator or diplomat. There's a lot of, projects and organizations that could use that sort of skill.
Organizers
Yeah,
too,
organize.
managers.
Or maybe you're just really good at doing mundane, repetitive tasks, and you make it meditative. And those people are valuable too, because a
Yes.
lot of people will jump out of their skin doing that. So somebody who can, I have a really good friend who he's like, I am just really good at doing boring things, and I can do it for hours. And I'm like, you're gold. Like, this is gold. So
Yeah.
it's very important to figure what it is. And I mean, if you have a tolerance for risk and you're super steady, maybe you're going to be an investigator. So I think it's just important for folks to make a list of the traits, the things that you bring to the table. So skills, character traits, backgrounds that you might not have. Like, if you come from a farming background, that's a valuable thing. You're going to be able to speak truth more than a lot of people will. Knowledge, maybe you've been trained, academically, you have knowledge that other people don't. Find a way to combine that with a specific area of animal activism that impassions you. So for me, I went from kind of doing everything to, okay, well, I was a television host, so it was a natural thing for me to start hosting events and fundraisers. And then I was like, well, I've also got a lot of production skills. So that's when I started producing really huge ad campaigns, billboard campaigns, transit campaigns, ones that are still going today. And now, being able
Let's see. Excuse me. I think I have one of those. Let me just bring that up here. Is this one of yours?
Yeah, that's one of mine. To you, it's fur trim. To her, it's it's a death sentence. Yeah. So we had, this was a billboard campaign I spearheaded through Animal Justice, and it covered 4 areas of animal exploitation: farmed animals, ones in captivity, ones for fur, and ones used in animal experimentation. So yeah, and it was
That's great.
yeah, so it was the largest animal rights billboard campaign in Canada, for sure. We're not sure, but everywhere else. But and I saw somebody say that they hear Toronto's a great city. It is a great city.
I'll bet. And so let's see. Can you talk a little bit about the different tools or steps that um, you give people to work with? Can you go through each of those, like working smarter, not harder, having boundaries? You want to touch on those?
Yeah, sure. So, the first thing before I get into it, I'm just curious, so I know who we're working with here today, that's joined us, Lindsey. I'd love to, if folks that are there could put in the comments where you sort of fall in terms of, are you a newbie animal advocate, like 1 year or less? Are you sort of mid-career activist, like around 2 to say 5 years? Or how many old timers do we have in there? How many veterans do we have 6+ years? So if you could put that in the comments, I'd be really curious. And I'd also really be curious to find out if anybody has sort of been able to focus in on what they can uniquely bring to the table. Sometimes hearing what other people have found can really inspire those that haven't so far.
Well, so far we don't have anyone responding to that just yet.
Yeah.
Just the ones that you saw so far. Pigs are the fourth smartest animal. Yes, they are quite intelligent, but Tom, thanks for watching, by the way. But also that isn't a criteria, and I know you feel this way too, Tom, for whether or not we should have compassion, some other being's intelligence.
They say it's not whether they can think or feel; it's whether they can suffer.
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay. So while we're waiting because I know there's a delay on these things, while we're waiting to hear where everybody's at, so Lindsey, let me go back just so that people know how the heck I'm talking about this stuff. So in my own journey to figure out how to become a more empowered, animal advocate that would be able to make a bigger impact and be able to stick around and not burn out, I developed all sorts of tools and exercises and techniques. And in the meantime, I became a coach 11, 12 years ago, life coach, body, mind, spirit coach. And because I was an activist, I ended up working with a lot of animal rights people because that was one of my communities.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's become really my passion, to be able to help, activists with that sort of deep inner work and high performance habits, and also more strategic approaches to how they can do activism, how they can empower themselves in their mission. So we talked a little bit about working smarter, not harder, and that piece about figure out where where you can make the most impact. Don't just show up to every protest. Don't participate in every Twitter fight. Don't glare at everybody wearing Canada Goose. Find your biggest potential contribution and see if you can sort of corner that. The other thing, that I'd really like to talk about, I just want to sort of take you through some cornerstones of keeping yourself empowered as an activist. So, one of the things that I found was super important was the idea of boundaries. And believe me, if you're not out there and you're not doing activism, and you could be doing, like you're sitting back and you're not taking a step into it, and I highly encourage you to jump in. But for those of you that are jumped in and you are starting to burn out, I really want you to think about how you create some boundaries in your activism. So, Lindsey, I don't know if you've heard this Warren Buffett quote, but he said, the most successful people are those who almost always say no. The most successful people are the ones
Yeah.
who almost always say no. And so I don't want you to say no to the animals. I don't want you to say no to activism, but I want you to say no sometimes. Okay. So, what I would really love to see is that once you found your corner, You focus on that, and then you still can show up and support other initiatives. I'm all about being intersectional and also supporting other social justice movements, but you have to kind of almost do a 75-25 split. Okay, that's, I mean, you work it out yourself, but really you need to stick to your bigger vision and not be hijacked by having
Yeah.
to a novel in every Facebook dispute that happens. Okay. You're like, you have to kind of measure everything that you enter into and go, is this in my wheelhouse? Is this in my vision? And then, say yes or no accordingly. So the other things that are really important around boundaries is just time away from activism to refuel. So I think one of the biggest problems, and tell me if I'm wrong, Lindsey, for activists, animal activists, is social media, is a lack of boundaries with social media.
I
So
don't know. I'm on social media all the time. I mean, I can't agree with that completely because I do a lot of my activism through my social media and I'm on almost all the time. And I think that's where my biggest contribution is. So maybe I'm not the person to ask that question to.
well, and I agree. I think social media has been an incredible tool for activism. So I
Yeah.
am all for using social media and using it in the most strategic way possible. But as long as you are immersed in always in the world of social media, as long as you're always online, there is a sense of never quite being away from it, never quite being safe. Okay. So for
Yeah,
example,
you have to make your boundaries, and I definitely do that.
what
But
do you do?
yes, I can see where you could get caught up in that. Well, I have a calendar that I made where certain days I'm on social media these hours, other days I'm on less,
Perfect.
and that's how I manage it. But I don't know if everyone does. That's probably not as likely because maybe because I have so many other things going on in my life that I'm doing.
Yeah.
So that's why I had to, it's through necessity that I figured it out, but maybe not everyone has figured that out. I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got some deliberateness around social media. So, I guess one of the things that I heard is that I think it's like 80% of North Americans reach for their phone within the first 5 minutes that they wake up, like they reach to go online. And I was floored by that. I was like, oh my God. Because to
Yeah.
me, going online, going on social media or online within the first few minutes of waking up is tantamount to stumbling out onto a busy street in your pajamas. Like when you just woke up, you're vulnerable. You're not in the mindset to be in that world. So I really highly recommend. This is something that's really changed things for me over the last year. Is not going online for the first hour of the day. So, just having that hour where you can really ground yourself and you can really get yourself, you can really just sort of be in yourself before you sort of head into the world and fight the good fight. I
Yeah.
also recommend doing the same thing before bedtime. I recommend, screens off at least an hour before, if not a couple of hours before.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
because as an advocate, we got to keep you healthy as possible. So if we're disrupting your sleep with screens, we're not doing the mission, we're not doing the movement any favors. And I think that's the thing that we have to remember here, Lindsey, is that a lot of animal activists, they're tough nuts for me to work with, because they're like, I don't have time for wellness, I don't have time to do strategy, there are billions of animals dying, which is absolutely true, and
Yeah.
I have to just do. And what ends up happening is we have a bunch of people that are running around with their hair on fire and not emulating, not creating a sort of energy that other people want to emulate. So
Right.
the wonderful thing is that when you do work on your own sort of personal groundedness or centeredness or peace, and you actually have some joy and presence in you and you're healthy, you're like a beacon. You know,
Yeah.
it's you don't have to do anything. You just kind of like light up a little bit, and people are like, what is up with you? And how can I be more like you? Like they want to emulate you. People want to emulate people that have some light within them, right? That are healthy.
Absolutely.
And so if we aren't taking care of ourselves as vegans, as animal activists, nobody's going to want to emulate us, you know. I always say having the right energy and health is like having being a walking advertisement, like a good walking advertisement for the movement. And
Right. It's like you say here, bridge building. If people meet you and you seem like a very angry, unhappy person, why would they want to listen to what you have to say or get involved with what you're doing? Because you look so unhappy and unsettled. So yeah, you have to be healthy within yourself. And so these are all really good things that you're bringing up here that are very, very helpful, I think.
Well, and one more thing that I want to say around boundaries is, as animal activists, we often are faced with a lot of graphic
Yeah.
images and videos. And I know I've worked on a lot of investigations, so I've seen the worst of the worst. But I have solid boundaries around that sort of thing. Those images are the sort of things that cause a type of PTSD for animal activists. And again, not to say that we shouldn't be watching them, because especially if you need extra motivation and you need the right information. So I'm not discouraging you from watching or viewing that kind of footage. But what I highly recommend is that you choose a time of the week or a time of the day, if you have to watch a lot every day, but
Mhm.
a very particular time where you feel solid, where you feel
Mhm.
safe, where you kind of ground yourself, and you're able to breathe deeply, and you're able to look and take it in a very deliberate way, so you're ready, so you don't get assaulted by this. Okay. Sometimes when we're just busy and we're going into this account and social media and everything, and we're not present, and then all of a sudden we watch a video, and it just destroys us, because we didn't have the capacity for it. We don't sometimes have the capacity for that. So as far as graphic images, and this is something very specific to animal rights people, just I would recommend having, collecting the URLs, and then at your appointed time during the week, when you're ready, then you sit down and you have enough space to have a good cry or to get angry, and I'll give you a couple tools around that, and to really be able to process it, because that's where this sort of idea of the trauma comes from. When we're hit with all of this suffering and we don't have a chance to process it, we don't have the tools, or we don't have the space to work through it. That's when it collects, it creates layers, that become very debilitating if we're not careful.
Mhm. Great. And so what are some of the tools that you can use when you've got, incredible anger, or let's see, you've seen something that we've all had those nights when you just can't get that image out of your mind.
Yeah.
What do you suggest in those moments that people do?
So I think, pain is inevitable in this movement. And, we're dealing with 72 billion, land animals killed for food each year, and 1.2 trillion marine animals, and that staggering environmental devastation and the health problems caused by the meat, dairy, and egg industry. So it is, it is very natural to get both feel rage from that, and to feel incredible sorrow, incredible hopelessness. And so it's important. We can't deny those feelings. I don't want those feelings driving the car. Okay. That's the thing. I don't want those feelings being the ones that take you through this journey of activism, because ultimately that is going to kill you, or it is going to totally sabotage your mission of reaching others. So it is so very important to find very sort of tangible ways to process the pain that you're going to inevitably feel as an activist in this movement. So, obviously, one of the very simplest ones before we get into the fancy ones is you need a safe place to talk it out. Okay. And that may seem obvious to folks like us, Lindsey, that probably have a lot of cultivated communities, but there are some people, and probably some people that are watching here, that they're like, they feel like they're the only one. And so it's so important to seek out, and even if it's online, to seek out. And obviously, if you're here, you're doing that. Folks that understand. Okay, you don't want to stay in this bubble all the time. You don't want to just have animal rights, vegan friends, because you're preaching to the choir all the time.
Sometimes it's really hard to not have vegan friends when you have to go out to eat.
Exactly.
I don't know about you, but I have a hard time eating with people that are non-vegan. My husband happens to be one, but we don't eat together. So
yeah, that's tough.
It's hard when your family, you have relatives. That's another area maybe to address, that the alienation that we feel from those in our family and friends who are not vegan.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, table that. Let's go to that afterwards, because that's
we'll write that one down.
Yeah, write that one down.
To remember.
Okay. So pain processing tool. Yeah. So talking it out. I mean, I think having a coach, a counselor, somebody else that where, it's all about you for a little bit, because mostly in your life, it's probably all about the causes that you care about, knowing this crowd. So you need a place where it can be all about you just for a very little bit of time. Okay. I'm a big fan of just breathing. Okay. Now, Lindsey, I think a lot of people, when they feel the pain of the suffering, they tend to try to distract from it or numb it out, or do anything to kind of, and that's where we get in trouble. Okay. And so just to be able to, when that sorrow comes up or that anger comes up, to be able to stop everything and to sit and actually breathe into the sensation. Okay. That sensation, that pain creates a sensation in your body. And if you can just notice where it is in your body, is it in your heart, or is it in your upper stomach? Is it in, your neck? And to really just breathe into that feeling. And that is so, like not it's so counterintuitive to what we've been taught, but really the only way through past pain is through it. Okay, so to be able to breathe into it, and I know it's super hard, but the more that you practice in it, the more that you will find the pain starts to dissolve when you actually face it. It's almost like the pain gives you an ointment to be able to do this. And so some techniques around breathing. I mean, if you can do a very simple meditation practice, or if you can do yoga, anything that formalizes that breathing is great. But even if it's just, okay, something is coming up and I just saw something, to breathe into it, to hold that place in your body and breathe into it. Yeah. Now, a little bit more of a very visceral, practical thing is something I call the mind dump. So if you're somebody like, I can't get into the breathing thing, I can't do meditation, pick up a pen, pick up a blank piece of paper. And once a day, I do this once a day. I usually do it fairly early in my day when my head's really going. Just pen to paper and just start stream of consciousness writing everything that's coming up, everything you're feeling, and no censoring. No, like, you can be as nasty as you want to be, as judgmental as you want to be, as sad sack as you want to be. This is the place where you just let what's happening in you out onto the piece of paper. And it's a cathartic exercise. It's a way to get all of the stuff that's churning inside of you out onto the piece of paper. And it's a way to sort of work through it and release it. And sometimes when you get it on the piece of paper, you might even, byproduct might be that you might even see some solutions. You might see some patterns. You might be able to do some problem solving from there. And Lindsey, probably, the big guns for pain processing tools is movement. So the emotions that we get from this work, they take up residence in our body as sensations, okay? Tightening or heaviness or freneticness or burning. And it's not enough to just think about it or talk about it. Sometimes we have to change the chemistry in our body. So that's where movement comes in. Lindsey, I'm sure you've seen, in the middle of a grocery store, a kid, upset about something, and they just drop to the floor, and all of a sudden they're like, "Rah!" Screaming, and tears and everything. And they get it all out, and then all of a sudden they get up and they're like, "Okay, what's next?" And that
Adults need to do that.
adults, we get that trained out of us. And I'm not advocating that you do
Right.
that in the middle of your
Right.
workplace or in the middle of a protest or whatever.
Or
But
go shoot fit hoops, whatever it is, but you're just move your body and get it out of you. For me, it's dance, because I'm a performer, so I love dance.
Of course.
So
Yes.
you're right. It does get trapped in your body, and you can actually feel it.
Yes,
you become sensitive to it. Absolutely. I agree. I believe that.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of the deliberate temper tantrum. I'm a big fan that if you got a lot of these things that are feeling pretty trapped in your body and you're feeling pretty paralyzed by it, or you're feeling really activated by it, for 30 seconds, just like stomp and flail the arms and scream if you can, or if you don't, do a silent scream. And if you really want to do this up, get some music that really amplifies whatever you're feeling. If it's rage, get some Rage Against the Machine on, or if it's sorrow, find the saddest song that, brings tears to us and move in it. Play the music and move in it, and just basically surrender to this feeling for a little bit. Because if you don't give it a chance to get up, get out, and have its space, it's going to come out in very unfortunate ways. Okay, it's either you're going to blow one day in a bad situation, or it's going to be this insidious undercurrent of depression or anxiety. And so if you are not moving this, if you're not working with this pain, seeing it, feeling it, and then consciously releasing it, it can cause some terrible things in your body and in the movement around you. Does that make sense?
Really good advice. No, that's great advice.
Yeah. And what did Angie say? Exactly. One needs to put the emotions out, just not harming someone. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with any emotion. There is no emotion that's wrong. It's what you do with the emotion. It's
right.
You act out of it. Okay.
Or suppress it and then it comes out.
Or repress it. Exactly.
Yeah, repress it. That's what I meant to say. Yeah. So you were saying that
we're talking about the family.
Yeah, is that still under this kind of group here?
Well, sure. Let's.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about bridge building a bit, okay? And then we can go, and then we can talk specifically about family, because I think there was Brad. Was it Brad was saying that he was having a lot of trouble with talking to his family. So yeah, so I want to address around this whole idea. So I am a big proponent of thinking of activism as a bridge building exercise as opposed to going to war. So thinking of activism as bridge building as opposed to a battle. And, there's a lot of this sort of war or battle language and mentality that is in our movement. And I understand it. Like, we have to take a solid, very strong, and sometimes very in your face stand to make things happen. But if we feel like we're at war with the rest of the world, then we've got a problem, because the rest of the world is who we need to convince to come and join our circle of compassion. So I think, as animal rights activists who witness so much suffering, and just have such sensitive hearts around this, we can develop this energy of hate, or of just rage, or self-righteousness. It's understandable. Like, why sometimes we're like, why can't people see? It seems so simple, right? But the fact is that if you sort of approach the rest of the world from that place of self-righteousness or judgment, the people who you need to convince and reach out to, their defenses are going to go up, and you have no chance of reaching them. Okay. I remember a teacher of mine that I worked with for quite a bit, Denise Lynn. She said, the moment that you start to judge someone is the moment you lose the ability to influence them.
Good point.
Yeah. And so, the other aspect of being in that energy of antagonism is that it will also eventually exhaust and harden you. And I don't want your beautiful, sensitive, big heart to be hardened. I don't want any of you to go through that. We need as much of your love in this world as possible. So I know striking out of anger or frustration may feel good in the moment, or self-righteousness, but what ends up happening is you hurt yourself and you just add to that global crap that you're trying to heal, you know?
Mm-hmm.
If folks felt loved and safe and fulfilled in this world, they wouldn't be hurting animals just for the sake of their taste buds, right? So
I'm not quite sure why they do it. Whoops, I bumped my head. I've never done that before. I don't know. Yeah, it's very frustrating to try to figure out the motivation when, especially for, I think, when the type of person that when the facts are placed right in front of you, immediately I changed, and so that, and I'm not that great. I mean, I'm a selfish person, and yet I could see that, and I know I'm a selfish person, but I could see how horrible that is, and it just drives you crazy. That's people that are good, compassionate people. They just don't make that connection. I think a lot of activists struggle with that a lot, and how to deal with that, and in relationships and families that causes a lot of conflict.
absolutely. It's incredibly
Yeah.
frustrating, and I'm not going to deny that. But here's some things that have helped me, Lindsey, and our folks joining us, around dissolving this judgment, which becomes this wall that keeps us. I like to think of everyone as a potential ally. Everyone is a potential ally, but judgment will basically create a wall that's not going to happen. And so some things that I keep in mind when I get judgy, and I get judgy, believe me, is that hurt is mostly caused by those who are hurting. So just as I was talking about, I really, and this is a philosophy that I've come to after a long period of time and studying a lot of people. People do the best they can from what they know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think of it as we've had the privilege of being able to connect and have that insight, something around our the way we work and our brain works, and the particular background we've had, and the particular seeds that were sowed in us has given us the privilege of being able to see this. Okay. And so for some others, they are maybe not seeing it because of fear. They are maybe seeing it because there's some pain in their life that is just too big, that it's taking up too much bandwidth, or it's a lack of access to knowledge motivating their actions. So if we take out that, okay, so you're saying, Lindsey, yeah, people that are given all the information and they still do it. Well, there's chances are they just don't have the bandwidth right now, and so, for example, somebody may just have this sense of feeling so empty that all that matters to them is consuming, that they have to consume to feel this emptiness, this hunger in them, and or maybe compassion was never modeled to them. Compassion to animals was never modeled to them. uh,
Yes.
Maybe they grew up powerless as a child, and so they have a compulsion to exert force.
But we were all brought up with and I agree what you're saying completely. It depends. Everyone's on their own path. We were talking about that before, how everyone is on their own path, and never judge anyone because you don't know where they're coming from or what they've experienced. And it's completely different than what you have. So I totally agree with that. Gosh, I lost my train of thought for a second there. I'm trying to remember what we were just talking about before I said that. I was going to comment on what you were mentioning.
Well, so keep thinking, and I'm sure it'll come to you. But I want to be clear with folks. This doesn't mean that you don't oppose people's actions. Okay, it doesn't mean that you don't stand up strong and boldly, and again, sometimes very loud and in your face. But you have to do it from a place of a little bit of tenderness, knowing that if that person could do better, they would. Okay. And so it just adds a little bit of space and equanimity to your activism.
I remember what I was going to say, and it's because it's a little bit off, slightly off, but we were all raised with a feeling of human suprematism. And that is the basis. Many people have not broken through that barrier. They see that as a reality. They can quote the Bible, places in the Bible where they read that and that helps substantiate for them and so forth, or others have other sources that they look at scientifically. And those are some of the people that haven't made that connection. So what do you have any comments or things to say in regard to that and dealing with that?
Well, okay, I have a couple of things. First of all, I just want to say one of the other things that helps me to dissolve judgment is to remember that I once was that person. Okay, I once was that person.
Yes.
I ate meat for like a huge part of my life. It's been almost 25 years, but that was 25 years eating it. And I remember, because I come from the prairies in Canada and sort of farm community, and I remember always having that, that weird cognitive dissonance. I purported to love animals, and yet I knew I was eating them. And I remember going to the adults and saying, like, this, why are we eating animals? This feels wrong and everything. And they're like, that's ridiculous. That's just the way things are. And it was so firmly implanted in me and programmed in me that it took me getting to, adulthood before I was able to go, okay, critical thinking. Okay, actually, this is just about my taste buds. I can love animals more than I can love meat. That's where I have to go with this. And so when I get all judgy, I think, oh my God, I was that person who, got sort of pissed off at my aunt and uncle when they asked for no bacon to be on the tomato sandwiches that I was making when I was 10,
Yeah.
I am the person who, a few years ago when I first heard about white privilege went, what? Right? And I am the person who still flies on airplanes, even though I know it creates incredible amount of pollution. I tried to
We all have to
cut down a lot.
Yeah. Well, lately you haven't been flying, but
I guess we're all grounded pretty well right now, right?
Yeah. But, yeah.
So
when you gotta go, you gotta go.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we can't take covered wagons anymore. So, but it is unfortunate. What's really sad is people taking PJs. There's really no reason for private. I take in a private. I'm not trying to be judgy, but it's true.
No, and we all have to do our part. And we're not. None of us are going to be perfect people. We're far from it. I can't even remember who used to say this, but somebody I knew used to say, being vegan to me means just trying to suck a little less.
That's good. I like that.
Trying to suck a little less, because the amount of destruction we do in our Western society, yikes. So anyway, I just that to remind yourself, I have to remind myself of those times when I did something that was damaging, something that hurt others. And I wasn't a bad person. I wasn't a bad person. I didn't know better. Okay.
And also any sort of revenge or anger is all just going to come back and eat away at you. So you're not harming the other person, you're harming yourself. And people have to just remember that.
Yeah.
Wow.
You're harming the movement,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
I want to say we only have 10 minutes left.
Oh, yes.
And we haven't shown your page, and you haven't addressed your last fueling yourself. Where you get your energy. Did you want to hit that one quickly, and then we'll show your website and all that?
You know what? That one's an easy one.
Okay.
And I would just like to address, because a few people were wondering about, you
Sure.
asked a question about when you're dealing with somebody who is on the other side of the issue and they're just not getting it. Sometimes it's just really important to stop looking at them as a roadblock, an opponent, or roadblock, somebody who's not getting it, and to just reconnect to who they are, and to realize that there is a whole universe within this person. They're not just this two-dimensional person that has to be convinced. They're their whole universe with their own pains and their own hopes and their own preferences. And sometimes if you just get to that place where you're like, step back and get curious about that person. And that may involve like actually getting to talk with them and asking them questions and getting to know more about them. Or it might be, if you don't have access to them like that, to just imagine, what might have happened to them that they got to be this way. What is their fear here? Like what's happening? Like what's motivating them? And I mean, not only does that create a possible connection, and common ground. And common ground is the best way to reach people. If people can relate to you, they are so much more likely to be influenced by you. Okay, so even in social media exchanges, that's so important. I really try to practice that instead of like, I know like when somebody is like coming after, like says something dumb about animal rights, and you just want to drop a bomb on them and this, and you're wrong about that, and everything. And I just really think, okay, this is a potential ally. What's worrying them? What's stopping them from? I'm going to assume they have a compassionate heart. What do they need to know and have acknowledged to be able to open up to hear? And some are lost causes, but even on social media, if you can conduct yourself as if they're a potential ally, working with them in a civil way, in a curious way, asking clarifying questions, not getting, crappy with them, not calling names, not getting snipey. Even if that person is lost, and we all know some people are completely lost for this, there's people watching. Okay, there's always people watching, and they'll go, wow, okay, yeah, like I like what she has to say, or like I really like how he handled that. Like I want to listen more. I'm a little bit more open to what they're saying. And I have seen people, when you approach them in that spirit of connection and bridge building, how the just shifts can happen in the smallest amount of time. It's unbelievable. Okay. So use the tool of curiosity to lead the way. If all else is lost, get curious about that person.
I totally agree with the whole thing of empathizing and looking at taking the other person's point of view, because that's a great way to dissipate anger. I use that in my own family with my brother at the moment. Seeing it from his point of view has helped me to forgive and dissipate my anger. So I totally agree with that technique. You did want to mention Animal Justice Academy, and we want to show your page where people can get a free 6-week, is it 6-week course?
No, so I have just a little free 5-part video
Okay.
series
Sorry.
called Power Tools for Changemakers. So a bunch of the stuff we talked about
I
today.
think I have a window here to show. I mean, let me just see. Go ahead, keep going. I'll see.
Yeah, so I take some of these ideas and go further into them. I also talk about productivity tips and working with decreasing your overwhelm. The pain processing tools I talked about. There we get more into the nitty gritty with those, and we talk about creating a regular routine that will help to keep you empowered as an animal activist, or just as an activist in general. And so, the idea of it is, and this is on my website, Lindsey, that, in order to light up this world the way we want to, we need to ignite ourselves. Okay. We need to create a fire in us, and we need to keep that fire burning. So, this 5-part, series just helps along with that. And then another thing I want to just let you know about is a project that I'm so excited about. I've always got a project that I'm working on for animal justice. It's coming up in January, and it's called Animal Justice Academy. And it's going to be a 6-week online training boot camp, community and movement, free, to help those who care about animals become the most informed, empowered, consistent, effective, action-taking champion for animals possible. So not only are we going to be doing some of this work, that's going to be a little piece of it, but we're going to empower people to make a better world for animals via politics, the media, the legal system, veganism, corporate outreach, how to work with their own communities, their own social circles, again, with their own unique talents. I'm super excited. We have luminaries from all over the animal rights movement coming to.
What sort of format will the Academy be? Will it be a series of videos that you watch, or how will it be?
So it'll be so the 6 weeks, you'll be getting video modules, but there will also be lots of live elements. We'll be doing live panels, some live interviews. We'll be doing some actions. We're going to be taking on a very big sort of united action with everybody in their different part of the world with their different talents. We're going to have a lot of Q&As with the team. We're going to have some breakout groups, a chance for you to be able to build community. So it's going to be a hybrid of again, modules. Like every week you're going to sort of get your curriculum and you're going to sort of watch it at your own pace, but then there's going to be a bunch of live elements where we're all going to get together and we're going to be able to feel the power of this. So I'm looking for this program to be 1,000 people strong, folks. So if you're interested right now, just go to animaljustice.ca, subscribe there, and we'll be giving out a notification when enrollment opens for Animal Justice Academy. It's completely free. It's open to everybody anywhere in the world, and it's going to be very exciting.
I just added that in, so hopefully that'll be in the comments. I'll double check later that all the links are in there. Yeah, so we just have a few minutes left, like 2 to 3 minutes left here. What would you like to wrap up with?
Well, so I would, I want to just talk very quickly that it's important to figure out what most fuels you in your life. And as a strategy for your mission, to regularly schedule it into your life, okay? You need to fuel yourself so you can fuel your activism. So for me, I regularly run, I do yoga, I do meditation, I do my soul practices, and I also really weave a lot of joy into my life. I know that sounds like a lot, but I managed to do a lot of activism as well and work a full-time job. So it isn't impossible, but you need to get smart about it. And so I'm going to leave you with one little idea, and that is everybody's got a to-do list. And I'm going to challenge you this week to add one thing to your to-do list a day that actually brings you some joy, okay? That actually, brings a degree of peace to you, or health, or exuberance. Whether that is today you add to your to-do list cuddling with my cat in a sunbeam, or whether it is FaceTiming my sister, or whether it is getting my guitar out for half an hour and playing. Something that again just ignites you, that feeds you, because if you're not getting fed, you are going to end up starving, and you're going to have nothing left to give anyone else. And folks, this is a small movement compared to the rest of the world out there in numbers. We need you to be as strong and empowered and effective as possible, okay? And that requires this work as well.
Absolutely. Wise words for all of us to take to heart. So thank you so much for being on today.
Oh, my pleasure.
That was just really informative, and I hope everybody got, I'm sure when people watch this going forward, they're going to love all this advice, and I hope everybody on here got their questions answered. We saw a lot of really cool comments that they were enjoying it. So remember, you can go to KimberlyCarroll.com.
Yes.
Right?
That's where
why don't you just run through the links real quick before we go off and say bye-bye.
If you want to do my Power Tools for Changemakers, just go to KimberlyCarroll.com. And for the Animal Justice Academy, animaljustice.ca. Now, .ca is a Canadian thing, so don't get confused, but that's what we use sometimes in Canada. So animaljustice.ca. And then just, again, subscribe to the mailing list. And as soon as enrollment opens up, you'll be the first one to know. Well,
fantastic. I'm excited.
First ones to know.
That would be wonderful. And for people to have all that information in their arsenal
Yeah.
to be able to, feel empowered. That's going to be phenomenal. So thank you so much for all you're doing for
Lindsay,
animals.
thank you. Lindsay, thank you for all you're doing. And
Oh,
thank you for being, like we talked about, people having that light, and you have that light in you. And that's
thank
beautiful to
you.
see. And I'm sure a lot of people look at her and go, what's that girl got going on?
A lot of years of study and hard knocks.
Yeah, absolutely. And expanding with pain
Expanding,
instead of
growing.
condensing, right?
Mm-hmm. You always have to be able to trust your heart to love again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You need to build yourself strong enough so that even when the knife goes into your heart, and in this movement it does a lot, you know that you are strong enough to grab that knife and pull it out and keep going.
Yes, it's very important for the animals, because we let them down if we're not strong. We let them down.
If you don't do this work on yourself, you're letting the animals down. How's that for a final statement?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Kimberly, thank you so much for being on. Please keep us posted about the Animal Justice Academy and all the other great things you're working on. And folks, thanks for tuning in. It's 6:00, so I have to say bye-bye, but come back next week at 5.
Bye, guys.
My next fabulous guest. I want to keep it a surprise, but you're going to love it. Catch you later. Thank you again, Kimberly.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.